262 licensed airline pilots flying millions of passengers for years, and every single one had cheated their way into the cockpit. This isn't fiction. It's a confession Pakistan's own government made. Within 72 hours, their jets were banned from Europe, America, and dozens of other nations. An entire aviation industry collapsed overnight. But the most chilling part? These weren't rookies. Some had been flying for decades. May 22, 2020. Pakistan International Airlines Flight 8303 begins its second landing attempt. What happens next will trigger an investigation that exposes aviation's darkest secret. The Airbus A320 had already botched one landing. The pilots, too high and too fast, ignored repeated warnings from air traffic control. But here's where the situation became unthinkable. As they came in to touch down, the landing gear never extended. Instead, both engines slammed into the runway, grinding against concrete at over 150 miles per hour, sending a shower of sparks into the night sky. With both engines crippled from the runway strike, the crew makes one final attempt to keep her flying, but the aircraft is bleeding altitude fast. It scrapes rooftops, clips houses, and then plows into a residential neighborhood. The impact ignites a fireball so violent it claims 97 of the 99 people on board, and even one more on the ground. But the examination revealed something far darker. The crash investigation should have been routine. Pilot error, case closed. But Aviation Minister Ghulam Sarwar Khan ordered something unprecedented. A comprehensive review of all pilot qualifications in Pakistan, not just PIA, but every airline, every pilot. What he discovered would destroy Pakistan's aviation reputation forever. Late June 2020. Inside Pakistan's parliament chambers, the air is heavy as the minister rises to deliver the crash report. Conversations die instantly. The room holds its breath. Then Khan's voice cuts through the silence. Out of Pakistan's 860 active commercial pilots, 262 were found not to have written their exams themselves. The mathematics of this fraud are staggering. Nearly 1 in 3 Pakistani pilots had cheated their way into flying. These weren't student pilots or regional operators. These were captains and first officers flying Boeing 777s and Airbus A320s on international routes. The scheme was breathtakingly simple, yet institutionally devastating. Aspiring pilots would complete their flight training, learning to physically operate aircraft. But when it came to written exams covering aerodynamics, meteorology, navigation mathematics, emergency procedures, they'd pay someone else to sit the test. They give money and have a dummy candidate sit in their place, Khan revealed to stunned lawmakers. The scheme allowed them to skip, proving they understood why planes fly, how weather systems work, or what to do when engines fail. These weren't forged documents or counterfeit licenses. The Civil Aviation Authority of Pakistan, the very institution responsible for ensuring flight safety, had issued genuine licenses based on fraudulent exam results. Either through corruption or catastrophic negligence, they'd rubber-stamped credentials for pilots who'd never demonstrated theoretical competence. Pakistan International Airlines, the national flag carrier, grounded 150 pilots within hours. Over a third of their pilot workforce gone overnight. "This will totally cripple us," admitted PIA spokesman Abdullah Khan, his voice betraying barely controlled panic. "But we cannot take risks with this." The groundings weren't limited to PIA. Serene Air suspended pilots. Air Blue pulled crews from schedules. Every Pakistani carrier scrambled to verify which of their pilots had actually earned their wings versus bought them. But the domestic crisis was just the beginning. The international response would be swift, merciless, and unprecedented. Within 72 hours of Pakistan's admission, the world reacted with coordinated fury. The United Arab Emirates grounded all Pakistani pilots flying for Emirates, Etihad, and Fly Dubai. Saudi Arabia suspended every Pakistani pilot at Saudia and Flynas. Qatar, Oman, Kuwait, Bahrain. They didn't investigate. They simply grounded every Pakistani license holder pending verification. The fear was visceral and justified. If Pakistani pilots had faked their credentials, they could be flying anywhere. Your Dubai to London flight, your Riyadh to New York connection. Any aircraft with a Pakistani pilot became suspect. Vietnam banned Pakistani pilots, Malaysia suspended them, Turkey grounded them, Ethiopia revoked their clearances. Within a week, Pakistani pilots worldwide found themselves unemployable, their licenses worthless paper until proven otherwise. But here's what delivered the killing blow. The European Union Aviation Safety Agency didn't stop at individual pilots. On June 30, 2020, they banned Pakistan International Airlines entirely. No PIA flight could enter European airspace, not cargo, not passenger, not even emergency diversions. The United States followed immediately. The Federal Aviation Administration downgraded Pakistan to Category 2 status, diplomatically stating the country failed to meet international safety standards. These weren't peripheral routes, London, Manchester, Birmingham, Milan. These were PIA's moneymakers. Routes carrying wealthy expats, business travelers, cargo shipments worth millions. Each banned destination hemorrhaged revenue the already debt-laden carrier couldn't afford to lose. Forensic audits of the Civil Aviation Authority's records revealed the impossible made routine. Computer systems showed pilots logged as flying commercial routes on the exact dates their licensing exams were supposedly taken. Some were recorded as being in different countries entirely while passing tests in Karachi or Islamabad. One pilot was supposedly taking his instrument rating exam while simultaneously captaining a flight to Dubai. Another passed his navigation test while on layover in Bangkok. The CAA's own systems had tracked these impossibilities for years, yet nobody had noticed, or worse, nobody had cared. At least 5 CAA officials were suspended for administrative lapses, but everyone knew this was corruption, not incompetence. Officials had either been complicit or negligent, while hundreds of unqualified pilots entered Pakistani airspace. This disturbing reality raises a fundamental concern. They were operators, not aviators. They could follow procedures but couldn't explain why those procedures existed. In normal conditions, this might work. But when systems fail, weather deteriorates, or emergencies cascade, theoretical knowledge becomes the difference between recovery and catastrophe. How many near misses had occurred? How many unreported incidents? How many passengers had unknowingly trusted their lives to pilots who couldn't explain why their aircraft stayed airborne? The domestic backlash was immediate and vicious. Opposition leader Bilawal Bhutto Zardari accused the government of causing international embarrassment through reckless disclosure. Aviation unions claimed the list was full of discrepancies, including pilots who'd retired years ago or never flew for Pakistani carriers. The Civil Aviation Authority itself contradicted the minister weeks later, claiming all licenses were genuine and validly issued. In a desperate damage control attempt, they insisted the issue had been misconstrued and incorrectly highlighted, essentially calling their own aviation minister a liar on the world stage. But the damage was irreversible. Every denial made Pakistan look more incompetent. Every clarification created new contradictions. The world watched as different government agencies told different stories, each more damaging than the last. But here's where Pakistan's humiliation truly deepened. By December 2020, investigations had cleared many of the suspended PIA pilots. 110 pilots who'd been caught in the initial dragnet proved their credentials were legitimate. But 29 pilots had their licenses permanently revoked, either failing retests or admitting to fraud when confronted with evidence. PIA's operational schedule collapsed to 8 flights daily, down from over 100 pre-pandemic. The airline, already drowning in debt, now faced an existential crisis. The EU ban, supposed to last 6 months, would stretch for over 4 years. Pakistan's solution was as necessary as it was humiliating. They engaged the United Kingdom's Civil Aviation Authority to oversee pilot testing. An entire nation admitting it couldn't trust itself to certify who should fly aircraft. New protocols were implemented: biometric identification for test takers, video surveillance of exam rooms, external proctoring from foreign observers. Every possible safeguard to prevent the fraud that had been routine for decades. Then came the reforms that exposed just how deep the rot went. The investigation revealed a cottage industry of exam fraud, professional test takers who specialized in aviation exams, CAA employees who'd warn which dates would have relaxed supervision, training schools that guaranteed licenses regardless of competence for the right price, Some pilots had never taken a single written exam themselves. Their entire theoretical knowledge was whatever they'd absorbed through osmosis during flight training. This wasn't just about aviation. If pilot licenses, documents literally determining who controls aircraft carrying hundreds of souls, could be corrupted so thoroughly, what else was fake? Medical degrees, engineering certifications, nuclear plant operator licenses. The International Civil Aviation Organization placed Pakistan under Significant Safety Concern status, a designation reserved for countries with systemic aviation failures. Pakistan joined the ranks of failed states and war-torn nations deemed unable to ensure basic flight safety. Every one of those 262 pilots had made a choice. They'd decided their career ambitions mattered more than passenger safety. They'd chosen to endanger thousands of lives every time they entered a cockpit. The 97 victims of Flight 8303 paid the ultimate price for this systemic fraud. They died not because of weather or mechanical failure, but because a system built on lies finally collapsed under its own weight. By mid-2021, Pakistan claimed it had addressed the safety concerns. New systems were in place, bad actors had been removed, international observers verified improvements. But trust, once shattered, doesn't rebuild easily. The European ban wouldn't lift until late 2024, over 4 years after the scandal broke. Other nations remained skeptical even longer. Today, Pakistani pilots face additional scrutiny worldwide. Every credential is questioned, every qualification doubted. The innocent pay for the guilty's crimes. An entire nation's aviation professionals work under a cloud of suspicion that may last generations. What shocked you most, that 30% faked their exams, or that it took 97 deaths to expose it? Comment below and subscribe.